Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to show you how to make an adapter so you can use your old 9-volt battery box with the new Power Functions receiver. Currently, if you use the extension cable powered off the 9-volt battery, it all hooks up, but you can see there's no power. So what we need to do is make an adapter so it works. And we can make two different versions of that adapter. One version of the adapter will allow us to hook it up like so. And I'm actually just going to move it down the line here for a second. And then the other version will allow us to hook it up this way, so that when we go to turn on the Power Functions receiver again, you see the green lights on. We have now powered the receiver. The same thing with this version. I am going to show you how to make one of these tonight, but I will show you the wiring that you would need to do to make the other version that travels this way. You may want to make this version if you want to make it a little more compact. You never know. So our first step is that we need to get a piece to make the conversion. And we do from the new Power Functions 4 prongs to the old Power Functions basically 2 lines. And what we're going to use that is the extension cable. You want to buy the shorter one because you are going to cut it up. I don't like really modifying too many bricks, but sometimes there are cases where you must. So the first step is I need to thank somebody. I need to thank this guy for all his work he has done on Power Functions, motors and remotes and wiring. From his website, I have used this diagram. It shows we have, coming off of a standard Power Functions battery pack, we actually have lines that are called 9-volt, C1, C2, and C1 and C2 are the control signals, and they are used to power motors. And then there's also a ground. So the difference between C1 and C2 and the 9-volt and the ground is that one becomes the positive, negative, depending on what the infrared receiver outputs. And when I mean positive and negative, and it can change, is that it can either forward or reverse the motor. Now, what happens is the power that comes off of the 9-volt battery actually powers both sets of either 9-volt or the C1. But what happens when you use Power Functions extension cable and you power this end off, it only sends power to C1 and C2, which is fine. If you just want to run a motor. You see how it's spinning that way? You can actually take this thing, turn it around too. Turn it again. See, all it does is change the polarity and turns the motor the other way. So, what we need to do is we need to bring C1 over to power the outer lines on this cable. There are two ways to do that, and that will make these two versions. I think the first step though is I need to show you how to open up this connector. From these pages, I have actually just blown this up so we can see a little better, so that you can see it on the power functions side. We have C1 9 volt, we have the ground, and we have C2, which is the other control. So let's open this bad boy up. To open this one up, I like to use a few screwdrivers, and just having a few on hand helps out. The first step here is to take a medium-sized screwdriver, and there are tabs on each side, little metal tabs. You want to be careful not to bend them too much. But in here, there are little spots of plastic are little catches. You need to release them. And there's one down here as well. And there's 3 on this side. The easiest way I found to do that is you just actually push the plastic away. So basically, stick it in like so. Stick that in. Stick that in. And then once you get 2 in like that, just take it and pry it up a little bit. Now this outer spot is still stuck, but we want to get the other side pried up, but we want to keep this up. So just take a little screwdriver and just stick it in there to keep it from falling down. Next step, take your screwdriver again and just work on the other side. So you got those 2 in, pry up on the other side. Sometimes you end up fighting with it a little bit. See there, it's come up. Now you also want to just go right here and just pop it up a little bit. And just work it out. Just from each side right here. And then it should pop up like this. And when you look at this piece that comes off, you can see you have 2 contact points for where it touches the negative row right here and the positive row right here. I actually like to label it all. And when you flip this over, so you got your negative and positive, you also have little punctures that actually go and puncture power functions wire, so that these will power, if you leave them alone, they currently power C1 and C2, which are the center. You could figure out a way to move these over, but we can do a little wiring on the inside to fix that. And the next step right here is the wire needs to come out. And there are the pins that are in right here. There's a possibility they may want to come out with it. They're pushed in there pretty good, but just work them out. This time it didn't come out. Okay. So in here, just gonna push them down a little bit. There are 3 other spots that actually puncture the wire and make contacts. What I did is I actually I've done this before obviously, so just cut a little wire, one of these strands off, and that's more than enough. Now, what we want to do is we need to, at this point in time, decide which version we're going to make. I'm going to make another one like this so that it connects on to the power functions, or not power function box, but the old 9-volt box, just like so. You can make one that goes like this, and I will show you the wiring on that one. So what we want to do, just gonna demonstrate this right here. So the power functions motors will draw power from C1 and C2. What we need to do is make it so that the infrared receiver can draw its power, and it uses the outer lines, which are the 9-volt and the ground. So what we need to do right now is we need to connect C1 with, let's just make sure I get this right. What we need to do is connect C1 with the ground, and we need to connect the 9-volt with C2, which will be just actually taking a line, and we're going to take between these contacts, we're going to go straight up through here. And when I label this off, we're going to have positive, and we're going to have negative right here. And the next thing we need to do is we need to take another wire and go right straight up through there. But what we need to do next is, because these spots right here have the punctures on the part that actually picks up power, we need to get power into here, and we need to make sure that when those connect, they connect onto these two lines. Okay? Now that's for the version that goes like this. Now if you want a version that runs like this, we need to have, you're going to need to have your positive and your negative, okay? And what we need to do here is we need to jump C1 with a 9-volt, and you're going to need to pick up that one contact from the lower piece right there. And then you need to take your ground and you need to connect it with C2. Sorry. That line is most likely going to end up like that. So you got two U's. Just make sure the tip of this isn't touching that contact or any of these. Okay? And the contact for that one will get picked up somewhere up here. So what we want to do is we want to cut two pieces of wire, just line it up, and you want to just look where those contacts are. You might as well just take the wire and run it up just like so. Just make two pieces about the same length. Voila. Now what we want to do in here is we want to actually just connect that in here. And I made that a little too long. Now what I like to do is I like to take a screwdriver, like so. I like to help myself push it into that wire. So that's wire number 1. Now wire 2 just goes up between these 2 contacts. Okay, so that's where the other wire goes. Now you just want to eyeball it up, just make sure that when the contacts go in, it's going to splice your wire. Now to put it back together, I like to use a little stack of bricks like this. And what you want to do is you want to get the ball rolling by just slowly pushing it in. Just start one side in, and then once you get about that far, you see it's still sticking out. You just stick it out a little bit more, and you can actually just stick it right on this block and push it down on until it's nice and flat. And you can pull it off, and voila. Now what we want to do is we want to double check that we've wired this cord correctly. So we'll just check the voltmeter here. Probably see it better like that. Now what should be happening is these contacts should be connected. Good so far. Now the next one's over. Good. Now there shouldn't be any connection between these two and those two. Beautiful. Now I also want to double check that you have a connection down here. So just stick your meter in there, and you just want to double check that you have a connection there, but nothing here. Perfect. Now you want to just double check your connection here. Good. Nothing. Good. So let's test it out. So now what we have done is we've created one like this, and I will put labels on here as well. So now that we can connect that on, which allows us to plug the infrared receiver in, which allows us to plug a motor in, you can see the infrared receiver now has power because the green light's on, and then we can actually just use the speed controller motor to control this.